LeBron James is going to Philadelphia, but can he really win a championship there? And what does this mean for the teams that missed out on him? Let's jump in. All right, Wes Goldberg here with Mike Shearer. We are recording this emergency pod on a Friday afternoon. RealGM Radio, usually off today, Mike, but we had to hop on here because just a few moments ago, LeBron James officially announced his decision on Twitter that he is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. A ton to get into in all of this, but I want to start with LeBron's own words here in a Twitter thread announcing his decision. So pretty short, I'm going to read it in full. I thought I was done when the season ended. I wasn't ready to announce it, and I knew I needed some time to really decide, but I was pretty sure I played my last game. I was honest at that last press conference when I said I needed to look at myself and decide if I still love this game. I still truly do love this game, and I have more to give. The last few weeks have been really special. I've never been able to have no clue what to do and take real time to just think. I've had an incredible few months with all the people I love trying to figure it all out. This is my last decision. I'm not going for money. I'm not going for family. What am I really playing for at this point? I still want to sacrifice. I still want to work. I still want to grind. I still want to compete to win and have a chance at feeling the feeling of winning another championship. I believe I can help make the 76ers a championship team, and I'm so excited to energize a new fan base and start this incredible journey one last time. Thank you to LA, Miami, I love you forever. Northeast Ohio will always be home. Mike, what was your initial reaction when you saw the news?
Wow. And I'm grateful it didn't come 2 seconds later. I was hovering over the send button at Basketball Poetry to send out a completely unrelated article. Well, not completely unrelated. A lot of it was tying down to the trickle-down effects of LeBron James choosing to go to any of various locations. So if Shams or LeBron had been a few seconds slower, I would have looked real silly. So thank you guys for the timing there.
Similar, I was planning the Locked On NBA Daily Show, and I had been doing that all morning, and then 20 minutes before we started recording that at noon, we got this decision. I was like, okay, and just like you, had to throw out all of my work from that morning and just start fresh. But look, I was surprised. I'll be honest, I didn't have Philadelphia as one of the top suitors here, and I get it. You know, like it's a super talented roster. I have my own questions about the basketball fit, and there's a number of things that I want to get into with you here. Whether or not the 76ers can win a championship with LeBron James, what this means for the teams that didn't get LeBron, and whether this was the right decision for LeBron in the first place. But, I was always a little bit skeptical of the LeBron fit in Philadelphia. Not to do the, hey, there's only one ball thing, but there really is a lot of guys who need the ball in their hands to be their best selves, right? Maxey, LeBron, Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, obviously, and you've even got VJ Edgecombe there, who's going to be, wanting to, spread his wings a little bit too. So I was like, I don't know. The basketball fit is a little bit clunky to me. They have a positional need for him, but I don't know if he's the right player there. But he said a couple of things in that statement. Number one, that he's looking forward to re-energizing a new fan base. And it's not something that I really considered. I think most people, like analysts, prognosticators, predictions, we're kind of going the other way. Like, hey, he's got no relationship with Philadelphia. That city means nothing to him. Like, it's probably Cleveland or Miami if he wants to go to somewhere that's familiar to him. In this case, he was like, no, I kind of want to go somewhere new. And I found that part of it interesting.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember if we talked about this on air or not yesterday when we did our podcast, right? But I think part of his legacy, when we talked a little while ago about the electoral map of LeBron James, how do we win over fandoms? And part of it was like his legacy is going to be this guy who just comes to all these different franchises and transforms them back into a champion, right? Like it's not the guy who's been in the same team for 24 years because no one in the history of the NBA has been on the same team for as long as LeBron's playing career has lasted. It's the guy who just goes everywhere and brings winning in his wake. And I think the idea for him of doing that one more time, maybe not as like the official bus driver, right? Like that'll probably be Maxey or Brown or maybe even Embiid on most nights, but certainly a man who is responsible for driving. He's the best passer on the team now instantly. So yeah, I think that the fit, I've talked myself into that basketball fit being pretty good, and we'll get into some of the questions in a second. But really, I think just like the idea of coming in somewhere new, re-energizing a fan base that, like you said, has become very jaded over time. Like they all think they're cursed. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that, yeah, maybe they are cursed. It's almost impossible for them not to have gotten out of the second round in all these years. And yet they've managed it. So who knows if they will this year, but at least there's hope where there hasn't been in a while, I think.
So the Sixers have not won the championship since 1983. That's a lifetime ago, right? I mean, we're talking about that drought from the New York Knicks. The 76ers are obviously dealing with their own drought too. Haven't been to the NBA finals in a very long time. So I think LeBron looks at this and says, okay, I could take this major market team. The Philadelphia 76ers are a historic franchise, have, employed some of the all-time greats in this league, have played in some of the most important series in this league, have been, have gone up against Michael Jordan, were a foe against Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. Like they are such an important part of NBA history, and yet don't really have as many championships as you'd think that they would. And again, their last one being in 1983. I think LeBron looks at that and says, I can reinvigorate this franchise. It's an historic franchise. It's a franchise whose biggest rival is the Boston Celtics, which is also my biggest rival, right? We also have Rich Paul being out like LeBron is never going to play for the Celtics. Everybody pretty much knows LeBron is never going to play for the Celtics. Well, this is the opposite of the Celtics, right? He's already played for the Lakers, and now he's played for the other team. And the other team he played for, Miami, is another Boston Celtics rival. So LeBron is, if there's a through line here, it's rivals of the Boston Celtics, which is something that LeBron that I can appreciate about LeBron James. But
I love the idea that LeBron has spent his entire career just trying to stick it to the Celtics. 23 years now. That's been his number one thought. Is I think that's hilarious.
I'm not ruling it out. There's other ties here with the organization, right beyond the clutch tie with Tyrese Maxey. But like LeBron has talked about Dr. J being one of his three favorite players, right? Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Dr. J are like his three favorite players. That probably is something for him, right? It's probably cool to wear the same jersey that Dr. J wore. But going back to like the fan base part of it, re-energizing that fan base, that Philadelphia fan base is, I think, unlike any other fan base he's ever played in front of, right? Like the Los Angeles fan base is a different kind of fan base. I'll put it that way, right? They love their teams, right? But it's just, they react to their teams winning and losing very differently. Miami is very similar in that way. Cleveland is a Midwest town. They care about their teams deeply, but I wouldn't say they're as like ravenous about their team as sports fans in Philadelphia, right? And I do wonder if LeBron James looks at that city and is just like, look, I'm going to be 42 years old at the beginning of next season. Part of me being reinvigorated might be being part of a town that just loves their sports as much as Philadelphia does. I wonder if that plays a part in any of this.
Could be. Like you said, it's going to be a different atmosphere. He's going to get booed at some point this season by his own fans. I'm not sure how often that's happened to LeBron, right? And but I think like Philly has such a large capacity for love too. Think about how they've stuck through with Joel Embiid for so long, through a lot of ups and a lot of downs, right? And I think, I think there's something to it. Like this is a nice meeting between two groups that have always had a maybe larger than life personality base, right? Like if that's how you want to describe the Philly fan base, which I think is fair.
There's also some other ties, right? Like Josh Harris, the 76ers owner. There's a relationship between him and LeBron James. Josh Harris is the Fanatics guy. LeBron was at Fanatics Fest last week. You were talking about right before we started getting on here, like LeBron has kind of been dropping some clues to Philadelphia maybe being the destination here.
Yeah, he had some comment about how I can't remember exactly what it was. It was some comment about how he's been leaving clues for people, like almost as if he'd made up his mind. He's been leaving breadcrumbs. And I was going back through like some of his previous, appearances and stuff. He's just been saying trust the process a lot. Like, very recently he said it, but he's been saying it as far back as like right after, like a couple weeks after the playoffs. So to me, it's like, I know how Rich Paul has been trying to frame this as like, oh, even LeBron doesn't know, like nobody close to LeBron knows. And maybe that's true. I think LeBron has known it's going to be Philly for a while, whatever, at least 2 or 3 weeks, whatever LeBron's going to say. I don't think that this was like, he woke up this morning. He's like, all right, we're doing it, boys. Like we're going to Philly. I think this is something that he's had in the back of his mind for a minute. He's
been wearing a lot of blue lately. Not sure if that's anything. I agree with you though. I think he didn't know, and then he knew, right? I do think that there was a decision process. I don't think this was him leaving Cleveland in 2018 and everybody knowing he was going to the Lakers, right? I think he actually did take a minute here, and I think he took those pitches from other teams very seriously. I think he really considered the Warriors. I think he really did consider the Heat. I think he considered the Cavs, but ultimately just came down to the 76ers. There's also a part of this that I kind of love the idea that he's just like, you know what? I think this is the team that gives me the best chance to win a championship.
Well, and so then do you think that like he would have made this move if they hadn't traded for Jaylen Brown?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. That's a great question. There's like a purity in that decision, right? because there's no ties to Philadelphia. Like if he goes to Cleveland and then says, "I also think Cleveland gives me the best chance to win the championship," you'll side eye that a little bit. We could debate whether or not that's true or not, but like I'm not totally sure that I believe you. If he goes back to Miami, it's like I'm not totally sure I believe you there because you have a familiarity with that organization. Maybe you were comfortable there. I think it would have been a great fit personally, but I've been out there saying that a lot. But in the Philadelphia 76ers, this does feel like in part a basketball decision. I do think that there's a relationship with the owner. There's the clutch connection with Tyrese Maxey. Like, there's obviously ties to the Sixers. There was no ties to the Indiana Pacers, and he just laughed at Tyrese Halliburton when Halliburton brought up the Sixers, and I think that would have been a great spot for LeBron James too. But, this is him picking his spot and saying, I think Philadelphia can give me the best chance to compete for a championship, and that's where I'm going to go. And I was trying to think of what this reminded me of, right? Because this is not Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. Right, this is very far from that. This to me though is different. It's a different sport. This is to me is Tom Brady going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Because every time LeBron has gone to a new team, he's brought somebody with him, right? He went to Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. They all re-signed there that same summer. Then he goes to Cleveland, gets them to trade Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. Then he goes to the Lakers, and a year later trades half the roster for Anthony Davis. This is the first time in his career where he's walking into a ready-made team. He's like, no, you guys made your star acquisition with Jaylen Brown. You got Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid's already here, all these things. I'm just going to fold myself into whatever this is, and I'm just going to try to just accentuate all of our strengths and just try to take us to that next level. And that to me is a lot of like what Brady did when he went to Tampa. It's like, look, you got the run game, you got the defense. Let me just come in here and sling some passes and show you what it takes to win a championship. This is LeBron's Tom Brady move to me.
Yeah, before I forget, I do want to say I think it's kind of hilarious that the 76ers parted ways with star-obsessed Daryl Morey right before landing Jaylen Brown and LeBron James, two of the bigger stars that would be available.
I do think that cleared the way for Bob Myers to have a heavier hand in everything that happened. And I do think the Bob Myers thing had a big deal in LeBron's decision.
Yeah, could be. Do we want to talk about sort of like the on-court fit now a little bit? Like I'm ready to dive into that.
Yeah, let's talk, because the other part of this is, hey, I think I can win a championship with Philly.
Yeah,
that's the on-court part
I think out of all the teams he could have landed on, I still think the basketball fit would have been best in Minnesota and Detroit. But out of the teams that he was rumored to be looking at, including Golden State, which seemed a little more periphery maybe, but was in the running, I do think Philly probably is the best. But it's interesting to look at how he changed his game last year versus how he'll be expected to play going forward. So a couple numbers for you. Last year, LeBron James had a 29% usage. That was his lowest since his second year in the league. And it's something that's going to drop lower this year, without question, right? Like there's going to be a lot of nights where he's going to be the fourth mouth to feed. His field goal attempts were the fewest of his career on a per possession basis. But what's interesting is his shot selection changed a lot too. So more than half of his twos were assisted for the first time in his career last year. He was more of a play finisher than he ever had been. Over a quarter of his plays came in transition, the highest level of his career. And he dunked more often in terms of like dunks per shot than he has in his entire career. And let me tell you, I've done a huge study on this. That never happens. Your average NBA player dunks less after the rookie year, less and less and less as their career goes on. LeBron had never dunked more on a per shot basis than he did last year, which I find fascinating. So he just spent a lot of time off ball and a lot of time stationed in the corners. Next to Reeves and Doncic, he looked exactly like what he was, a very high level third banana. But now he's going to be in that same role in Philadelphia, high level third or fourth banana, doing it in a totally different way. He's not going to be a play finisher anymore. He's going to be a playmaker. He's immediately the best passer on the team. Like I said, right up at the top, has a high chance of leading the team in assists as a power forward, maybe power center on some nights. And we can talk about that. I think the inverted pick and roll stuff he can run with Tyrese Maxey is going to be amazing. Like I think the two of them are going to have an incredible two-man game. Either one can set the pick. Either one can space the floor. Like I know last year wasn't James's best shooting season, but I have faith in him to get back to respectable levels there. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think like if you're going to put, depending on how the matchups break out, like Jaylen Brown could have a lot more opportunity to feast in the post, and James is an amazing entry passer who can feed him down there. He can cut around off Joel Embiid on the nights where Embiid is healthy and has it cooking. Like I actually think offensively this is going to work really well. I do think poor VJ Edgecombe is looking around like, where do my touches come from? Like when do I get to shoot the ball?
Right.
But I think offensively this team is going to look really good. And before we get to defense, we can stop there.
Yeah, I mean, VJ Edgecombe, he's such a great cutter that's those slot cuts, those 45, like all that stuff. He is just going to feast on these things. as long as these older guys are looking for him, which I think they will.
Yeah.
The Maxey part of this is such an underrated look. LeBron made magic with Kyrie Irving in Cleveland. He had a really good pick and roll chemistry with Austin Reeves with the Lakers. That Maxey LeBron pick and roll, that might end up being like the central part of this offense. I'm interested though, like that was sort of my hesitation with the Sixers fit, is like I didn't think the ball would be in LeBron's hands enough. And it sounds like you think the other way. You think actually they're going to defer to LeBron, and he's going to be sort of game managing everything, getting guys in those right spots. If that's the case, I love this a lot more for the Sixers, because I do think as great as Maxey is, he's elite at a lot of things. He's not an elite passer. He's fine. Embiid at this stage of his career, we were talking about this before LeBron. We were talking about this in the playoffs. Like, he just can't be the pivot point of your offense at this stage because he's just not reliable enough with his availability. And I like Jaylen Brown. He is not a play starter in any regard. He is like, his sliders are all the way pushed up on play finishing and moved pretty far down in terms of the playmaking part of this. Like, his assist-to-turnover ratio has always been bad. I think it's why the analytics don't love Jaylen Brown. That's a big part of it. So.
Yeah, I don't think James is going to be like bringing the ball up, but I think in the half court, when things slog down, I think he will be the guy who's orchestrating the battlefield, right? He'll be the general behind the lines, and he's going to be making sure that everybody else eats. I think, there's a lot of hungry mouths on this team, and he's going to be table setting. So I think that
LeBron
is
and Maxey splitting that, and then Embiid, Edgecombe, and Jaylen Brown orbiting around those two. That makes a lot of sense to me. They got Quentin Grimes, they got Dean Wade, who are two guys that I really liked as additions for them. I still have my questions about Philadelphia that we could talk about here, but the more, I was queasy about this offensive fit. I didn't love it. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this is just like confirmation bias now that it's just done, and I'm just going to try to talk myself into it because I want the end of LeBron's career to be something worth celebrating here. Maybe I'm talking myself into it, but you seem into it, so I'll take both of you guys for it. The one thing I'll say about LeBron has been right 1,000% every time. Like, he's always right. He's won a championship everywhere he's gone. So I defer to you guys, I guess.
I think that it's going to be the biggest issue on offense is just going to be the spacing. So I think, but that said, it's like defenses are going to have to sag off of really good offensive players. This isn't sagging off of Dean Wade, right? This is sagging off of LeBron or Jaylen Brown or Joel Embiid. Maybe VJ Edgecombe, but then VJ can catch it and just put on the afterburners and rise up and throw it down on you. It's a very different story to sag off of a guy for a defense to shrink away from people who are so good with the ball in their hands than it is from like a catch and shoot guy who shoots 36% on completely wide open threes, right? Like, it's a different kind of defensive attention that these guys get, even when they're the fourth place in the pecking order.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway from like the Sixers' moves in general. Is this team just got so much more physical. That in a way that they weren't last year, right? Maxey was maybe their most physical player last season, right? Embiid is kind of a finesse guy at this point, as big as he is. Like, he could kind of crank it back up to being physical, but he really doesn't want to get to the rim as much anymore. But you swap Jaylen Brown for Paul George, you're immediately more physical. Like you said, like if you're going to sag off of Jaylen Brown, he's just going to eat up that space and put a shoulder into you. And then he might get called for an offensive foul, but he's going to do it. And right. LeBron James, as we know, is incredibly physical. This team was bottom half of the league in transition last year. They're going to move very close to into probably near the top 10 in the league in transition, even with Embiid as a trailer. Like, just between Maxey, LeBron, and Jaylen Brown now, like, those are real transition weapons that they have. I think the physicality factor of all this is a big deal. And I also think just from a leadership perspective, right? Like, LeBron going in there many years post-process, but you could argue like there's still a little bit of like lingering like kind of stink to the process part of this. LeBron has been nothing but a winner his entire career. Like, he can kind of go in there and just like instantly be like the karma reversal of the process stuff and just walk in there and just be like, all right, let me show you guys what it really means to win. And if I'm Philadelphia, if I'm a Sixers fan, that's probably what I'm most excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like this is the first time in nearly a decade where the night-to-night success of the team doesn't rely purely upon like, oh, how healthy is Joel Embiid, And they made some strides that direction last year with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, but Paul George missed a lot of the season too. And then it was like Maxey just trying to carry the whole team more or less by himself. And this year they just have so many more weapons. Jaylen Brown is famously durable. LeBron's health has waxed and waned a little bit over the years, but Maxey is generally pretty available. Like, I think that for the first time in a long time, like, they're going to be a real threat to beat even good teams when Joel Embiid's not playing. And I think that's just got to be such a relief for the whole organization, for the fan base, for Embiid himself. Like, we say this every year, but maybe this is the year where, like, he doesn't have to be, MVP level Joel Embiid in the playoffs. But maybe he can take the regular season so easy. Maybe he can just take off so many nights. Maybe he can be so careful managing his health that he really is fresh-ish for the playoffs when they'll need him more. So we say that every year. I get it. But I think this is the first year where even if that answer is no, the 76ers are not a complete washout where you're like, yep, they're going to lose immediately in round one or get, swept in round two. Like, I think this is the year where they can still at least pretend that they have a ceiling that's higher than that without Embiid.
Well, that's where I think my concern still is with Philadelphia is I still think they need Embiid to be healthy for 4 playoff series to win a championship. Right? I like Dembona a lot. I liked him a lot coming out of UCLA. Like, I'm an Dembona, but starting if you think about the teams that the Sixers are going to have to beat in the playoffs, right? Whether it's the Knicks and Karl-Anthony Towns, the Pistons and presumably Jalen Duren, Indiana with Ivica Zubac there. Like, maybe it's Miami with a Giannis and Bam front court. You're going to need a real presence there. And that's still my one hang up is, okay, I like the Sixers team. Do I believe that Embiid can stay healthy? Because I still don't think they've solved that. They got deep everywhere else. They are not particularly deep at center.
Agreed. And I think that's something that they can and will try to address. I think backup centers are not – backup center market this year was actually pretty high. Like, people paid a lot of money to get decent backup centers. But I do think there are a lot of quality backup centers out there. It only takes a couple teams to decide to be a seller, and you can find one that you feel pretty good about. But I do think you also hit upon their other real, like, on-paper weakness, which is – LeBron is going to have to guard really good scorers now. Like, there's nobody else on this team in the starting lineup that is going to be able to guard Giannis. That's going to be able to guard Jason Tatum. That's going to be able to guard some of these, like, apex giant wings that are in the East. I'm forgetting one of the big ones, but yeah, this is the first time he's not going to be able to just, like, sit back and do nothing. Like, how good do you feel about him guarding Karl-Anthony Towns? That's the other one, because I think he will have to do that. Jaylen Brown is game to guard some of these guys, but he's not big enough to check them. And Embiid can't. So it's going to have to be LeBron unless you want to sit him down for Dean Wade. And God help you if you're the coach who benches LeBron for Dean Wade in crunch time situation. So, I think that's my number one concern is, like, this defense could be bad. I think in the regular season, they might be average-ish where they look way worse than that some nights and way better. But their transition defense in particular might be the worst in the league next year. Like, they might be 30th out of 30 teams in transition defense. But every year we say this, and every year we're like, well, you don't want to be the team that plays LeBron in the playoffs. And generally speaking, unless you're like the Thunder or the Nuggets, you haven't wanted to play LeBron in the playoffs during his career, right? So there's just so much of the things that are valuable in the playoffs on this team that I think they might end up like 4th or 5th in the East in the regular season and then just look totally different when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think part of that will also let's kind of load maintenance Joel Embiid here during the regular season, try to make sure that he's healthy in the playoffs. Something that they started last year. They probably got a little bit more experience and figured out how to exactly do it going into this season. That's why I like the Miami fit for LeBron so much, is because he could just be the worst defender in that starting group and it wouldn't have mattered. And in Philadelphia, I think you're Jaylen Brown and VJ Edgecombe. Those are the two guys that are just be like, hey, Jaylen Brown, you're going to have to turn back the time machine and really dial it up defensively. And then VJ Edgecombe, like, hey, you thought you were going to be this guy? You're going to actually be this other guy in the NBA. You're going to be a two-way kind of role player, a high-level one.
Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Like, that would have been, I think Edgecombe obviously has the talent, the athleticism, and the size to be a great defender, and he had flashes as a great defender. He's certainly been very competitive in his career so far, but that's going to be his role now, is like, hey, we need you to be the point of attack defender. Jaylen Brown, you're going to have to be our wing defender. And then you just hope, I guess, that Embiid is enough of a rim presence and available enough where, those bigger power forward types, those bigger center types are just not going to be able to dominate. I guess that's the idea here.
Yeah, really, I think the idea is that there's so much offense that the defense is not strictly necessary. Like I was having a debate with a buddy of mine before we hopped on about, like, can LeBron play center and for how long? Like, he's never wanted to play center. He's never been particularly good at center, right? Like, he's just too small. Even as big as he is, he's just too small to play center a lot of minutes. But are there going to be, like, late game situations where they're like, we're going to go hyper small, bring in Dean Wade to guard some of these other guys, and LeBron, you're going to have to hold up a center. You're going to have to rebound. You're going to have to box out. But those teams would score so many points. Like, those lineups, LeBron at center would be unbelievable offensively, to the point where, especially, again, I'm thinking of this through a playoff lens, right? Because I think playoff offense and regular season offense have proven to be two entirely different beasts. And I think all this self-creation, all these guys who are so good at getting their own buckets, those are the things that do play in the playoffs. I just think that those lines are going to be very hard to stop if LeBron is willing to buy in and can physically hold up on the boards at center.
I do think they'll probably play that lineup a bit. I just don't know how much. That might be one of those, hey, like, let's dust that off. Let's play it a couple times in the regular season, just try to experiment with it and then really dust it off in the playoffs. But even by then, you might have made another addition at that 5. I mean, who knows? I'm going to give you a list of playoff teams, and you stop me when there's a team that's clearly better than the Philadelphia 76ers now that they have LeBron James.
All right, so you're building from the bottom up. Got it.
Correct. Bottom-ish. We don't have to debate the order.
Yeah.
Charlotte, Orlando, Atlanta, Toronto with Kawhi, maybe, Miami, Indiana, Boston, Cleveland.
I think Cleveland would be better. That might be controversial. I think a lot of people are very low on Cleveland, and obviously they're going to be sad they missed out on LeBron. I think Miami could. I want to see, like, I think Miami and Philadelphia are both a little bit beholden to, like, hey, what's our stars' health look like? You know, if Giannis is hurt and Embiid's healthy-ish, then Philly's clearly better, and vice versa. So, like, I thought about stopping at Miami, but I think just the Giannis health thing makes me nervous. I think Boston could be a better regular season than this Philadelphia team. I have no faith in them as a playoff outperformer right now.
Right.
There's just too many years now of Boston. You know, they have obviously the one title run, and then every other year they've basically been a disappointment in the playoffs. And I think they're probably worse than they were. Maybe a little better just because you have Tatum instead of Brown, and we'll see if Tatum can be healthy or whatever. But I think that they're a regular season team right now, not a playoff team. So, but I think New York is the only team that, and Detroit are the two teams you look at and are like, yes, these are definitely teams that are going to be better in the regular season and might be like would be a real battle in the playoffs. I think that's the list. And then I think Cleveland has a pretty good chance, and I think Miami has a pretty good chance.
So in my kind of tiers, when I think about the Eastern Conference, I have the Knicks in a tier by themselves at number 1.
Absolutely.
Then that second tier prior to LeBron signing with Philly, I had Detroit, Cleveland, Indiana, just in a tier by themselves at number 2. And then that third tier, I had Miami, Boston, Toronto, assuming they get Kawhi, and Philly. I think Philly moved up into that tier and Boston moved down into that tier with the Jaylen Brown, Paul George trade. And now with Philly getting LeBron, I move them up a tier. I move them into that Detroit, Cleveland, Indiana tier. I think that's where Philly is with, and I think Miami does have a chance to bump their way into that tier. They still have some moves to make here, but maybe that's the next part of this conversation is, well, no, actually, before we get to the teams that missed out on LeBron, does he need to win a championship for this move to pay off? For people to just be like, yeah, you know what? That was the right decision. Or if he doesn't win a championship, or let's even say make the finals. If they don't make the finals, is this almost like that was the wrong decision when we look back on it?
No, at this point, I think, you know, LeBron's story is kind of already written because I think at this point, people have become so entrenched in their opinions of LeBron one way or the other that like it would take him winning 4 straight titles for people to be like, oh yeah, he's definitely better than I already go online and I see people being like, can you imagine Michael Jordan joining, you know, Philadelphia and trying to chase a ring at the end of his career or whatever? So like, I think people are just like predisposed in their LeBron opinions one way or the other. Either he's your greatest of all time or he sucks. He's the worst person in the league. Not very many people are in between, you know, not in terms of like your typical X, Twitter, Blue Sky fan base user. Like I think that
Blue Sky
people's opinions are just locked into whatever they are. And I don't know that this will change anything. And like LeBron himself has nothing left to prove. So would it be awesome if he came in and he's like, yeah, I took this team back to the promised land, just like Brunson did to New York. Like, I think it would be very cool. I think it would be like a really nice note in his career. Obviously, like every championship is. I don't think it changes the way anybody sees him one way or the other.
One of the things with LeBron is, like, even if you don't think he's the great player, like one of the talking points that I've seen out there is like, okay, whatever you think, you might not be the GOAT. Michael Jordan might have a higher peak than LeBron James, but he has the best body of work. I think if he goes to Philly and wins a championship in these next couple of seasons, I think that cements the best body of work argument for LeBron. Like, there's nothing.
It's already there to me, you know.
To me, I agree, 100%.
So again, it's not going to change my opinion because I'm already there with him on the body of work stuff. I'm one of these people. I don't see how my opinion of LeBron changes based on what happens in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I don't know if my opinion will change. I will find it very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a killer storyline, right? Like if he comes back and it just speaks to what his legacy would be. It's like wherever I go, I become a winner. And that's like a cool thing to bring with you into your Hall of Fame plaque
and
ceremony.
To do it in your 40s, right?
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. Michael Jordan did not play into his 40s, people. So that's why he never did this.
Well, he didn't ring chase with the Wizards, that's for sure.
That's absolutely right. So those teams that didn't get LeBron James, Golden State, Cleveland, Miami. I guess we could put Minnesota in that, even though they never really seemed like they were counting on it. They were making other moves, but whatever. What do they do now? Of that group, which team to you is most interesting?
I think they're all pretty interesting because I still think Miami's the most interesting. And I would hope that you would agree, but I just think like I'm really excited. They have their own massive move that they made this offseason. Like the LeBron thing would have been very cool. I never believed he was going to Miami for a second. I thought for a long time it was going to be Cleveland. I just assumed he'd go back there for the storybook finish, et cetera, which who knows? Maybe he will. This is not a 1-year contract. Remember, this is a 1+1. He always leave the James classic is the 1+1, right? He always leaves open the door for something else. So like he might.
He did say this will be his last decision, but he can always change his mind.
You can always change your mind, right? And his last decision might be, yeah, I'm going to stay in Philly for 1 more year. You know,
I've already decided this.
But I think Miami with Giannis coming in, that's such an interesting team. The Giannis Bam front court is fascinating. Like the I don't want to say the lack of guard play, but like just the different kind of pieces they have in the backcourt there between Hardaway and Larson and Davion Mitchell being such a like counterpoint to the star power they have in the front court. I think that team is going to be really fun and really interesting to watch still. That's the team out of the ones you've mentioned that I'm most excited to see this year. Cleveland's back to where they were before, right? Like where they were last year, more or less. Harden's going to resign. They're going to bring back the same team. You're hoping on Jalen Tyson taking a step forward. Like that's cool. If I was them, I'd be very disappointed LeBron didn't join. I liked that fit a lot as well. I think they could have really used him, but I think this Philly thing has been coming for a couple of weeks now, like I said. So hopefully they prepared themselves for this possibility.
So for the Miami part of this, they have 3 open roster spots, 12 guys on the roster right now. I think they keep one of those spots open for a buyout guy, whether that happens in the offseason or during the season or whatever. I think that's their idea here. The other name that's out there right now that's been tied to Miami is DeMar DeRozan. I think that they will have that conversation. I don't know that DeRozan is a starter at this stage. I think maybe that's a guy who comes off the bench and maybe replaces what you lost in Jaime Jaquez Jr. in terms of like 6-man production. I think that's probably something they do. The one thing that they were out there saying that they needed was more playmaking, and obviously they had LeBron James in mind there. And now without LeBron, the market for playmakers is basically nothing. Yeah. I don't buy any of the Russell Westbrook. No, I think that's coming from the Westbrook camp. I don't think that's coming from the Miami camp. I don't think there's any interest there. But I think they basically need a playmaker, a wing, and a big man. They still need a backup center, which I think they were always going to sign before the season.
Well, you just named every position on a basketball court, basically. So that's not great when you put it that way.
No, but it's not. They need it. They need it in the way that they just need to fill out the roster, right?
Yeah.
But I would say their biggest actual skill need is still playmaking, and I just don't know how they necessarily find that. It's going to be to me. I think just Giannis becomes that guy. He's going to have the ball in his hands more now than I think maybe. I don't want to say more than they wanted to because they obviously wanted Giannis in a very bad way and probably didn't anticipate getting LeBron when they traded for Giannis. I still think the Heat are the biggest winner of the offseason because they got the best player at the end of the day, but Philly's right up there.
Yeah, and going back to the Miami playmaking stuff is like they had the same problem last year, right? And like this is a problem Miami has every year. I always say the Heat, their biggest issue every single year is they don't have any guys who can dribble. And I still kind of feel like that's the case, right? Like, and you know what though? They schemed their way out of it last year. Not that their offense was like amazing, right? Like we can look at their end of the year offensive stats and it was fine. But I still think that relative to the offensive personnel they had available to them to most of the year, that they still outperformed what maybe they should have on paper. And now suddenly your on paper features Giannis instead of, Jaime Jaquez and one of either Tyler Hero or Norm Powell, whichever one was healthy at the time. And I think that's just such a monster upgrade in the system that they have created around like super fast, straight line drives. The second you get a rebound pass to whoever is on the sideline at midcourt, that person runs in a straight line to the hoop and don't do anything else. I think that system is great for Giannis if he's willing to buy into it, and play some shorter stints. I think he's going to run out of breath in that system pretty quick. But it's kind of how he's always wanted to play anyway.
After listening to Eric Spoelstra a little bit after the Giannis press conference, I think they're going to tweak it a little bit. I do think they're going to bring back on-ball screens and stuff because there's just enough there with Giannis working as a screener and as a ball handler in screens. I think that's something that they're going to want to explore. But I do think the practicalities of spacing and cutting and all that is going to be a major part, and that's how you scheme out of it. Davion Mitchell should be a sneaky big contributor for Miami this year. Golden State was the other team out there for Giannis. They kind of seemed like they were putting all their eggs in that basket. of just
for
like
Giannis or for James, just to be so we're clear.
I'm sorry. Well, Giannis and then LeBron, and that's sort of
it was both.
right. That's been the trend for them all summer. I've been arguing this entire time. That is not what the Warriors need to do. To me, the Warriors don't have a ceiling problem; they have a floor problem. Giannis obviously made sense for them. LeBron, not as much. I think what the Warriors are going to go re-sign Draymond Green. We know that's going to happen probably within the next couple of days. But then after that, they still only have 11 play. Even when they sign Draymond, 11 guys under contract. 2 of those guys, by the way, aren't going to be available for most of the season because it's Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody are out. Butler might not be back until February. This team has a long ways to go when we're talking about like maximizing these last couple of years of Steph Curry. But I would not be looking at another LeBron quick fix type of guy. I'd be looking to try to get guys who could build the floor of this team up a little bit more. And I've got some names in mind. I don't necessarily want to do a whole Warriors podcast, but like, why shouldn't they go out and chase a Domantas Sabonis who can just go out there, play a bunch of games, be really productive, rebound the ball, get the ball back to Steph Curry with some offensive boards? Like that would be a guy I'm looking for if I'm the Warriors, and that always made way more sense to me than LeBron.
I don't love the Sabonis fit in Golden State necessarily, but I will say I also didn't love the LeBron fit in Golden State. I think that would have been depressing as hell. Like I don't really want to see like LeBron and Steph Curry like be old and mediocre together. Like
that was my point this entire time. Everybody's like, "Oh, from a basketball fan perspective, that's the best fit." I'm like, "No, it's not. No. It would be like, hey, LeBron this is really cool for a week, and then we would realize how old and sad it looks and wish it never happened."
Totally. I totally agree with that. Like, I think Curry, still has a lot left to give, but there's just no way for him to achieve the kind of team success that, fans want him to have, that we all want him to have going forward. Like, it's not really in the books if he's going to stay in the Warriors, and Warriors fans might not want to hear that, but like they were really good for a really long time. This is just sort of what the end looks like, right? Like, it's never going to be that pretty. There's not going to be a quick fix. Even LeBron on an $8 million contract wasn't going to suddenly put the Warriors up there with even the Minnesotas and Denvers of the world, much less the Spurs and the Thunder. So it's fine.
So what do the Warriors do now?
Well, we should save that for a different pod where how we fix the Warriors, right? I think the Warriors ride it out, and I say let's hope that we can. Butler comes back, he looks more or less like what he used to. He can get there by the playoffs. They've got Yaxel Lindenberg, who needs to be a focal point of the team. He looks so good. He looks so.
Well, Yaxel certainly thinks so.
Yeah, well, he should. He showed out in summer league, right? Like I love the confidence he has. I love the well-roundedness he has. You know what I mean? That's not something you can say about very many rookies. And I don't know what the future for the Warriors looks like in a couple of years. I think this season and the one after might be a little painful as Curry continues to be amazing and the team just isn't that good around him. And that's where they are, and it sucks. Like I don't feel optimistic for Warriors fans by any means, and I feel bad saying it, but that's
just hoping for Jimmy to come back and be anything like he was 2 years ago is not an awesome plan. I would like to see the Warriors just fill out their depth with good players because that to me is their biggest problem. But all right, before we get out of here, I'm going to spring this on you. If you're not ready, you can throw it back to me, and then you could think about your answer a little bit.
Oh boy,
biggest non-Philadelphia 76ers winner in LeBron signing with Philly.
Biggest non-76ers winner. Yeah, you go with yours for a second. Let me ponder that.
I think NBA fans. I think this is awesome. I'm celebrating that he didn't go to Golden State. And I still have friends in Golden State. I still know people in that organization. I hated that as a basketball story. It was icky to me always. I'm so glad it didn't happen. I was almost rooting for that to happen more than him going to Miami. So basketball fans for that reason. And also, Philly is such an awesome sports town. And we saw this when the Eagles were winning Super Bowls. Like when they win, they celebrate their team with just this full-throatedness that is just really cool. And I actually do think it's pretty neat. Like it's weird when I think about LeBron wearing that Sixers jersey with the Phila in the front, or even like the Iverson jersey, where I've seen that being the one that they are photoshopping the most. Like it's weird, but it's cool as hell. Like I am really into this idea overall. And LeBron going to Philly and just being like, look, let me show you how to win. And if they can get to the NBA Finals and make that market matter in a basketball sense again, in a real way that's beyond just like debating the process and analytics and all of this stuff, I just think that's really cool. We're going to get Philly playing on Christmas Day. What do you think the Christmas Day game is? Is it Philly Knicks? That feels like the right.
That'd be fun. Philly Knicks is got to be it. Yeah, I think that you nailed it.
The only other team would be Boston, but I just don't think Boston plays Christmas anymore. Maybe they do, but I just like, what's the argument for have the Celtics on Christmas?
I think so just going back to your questions, I think the biggest winners, non-Philly winners, because I do think Maxey is a huge winner here, actually, because I think the pecking order in Philly was very confusing beforehand. And I think that James just there as a like lubricant to get the engine rolling, like as the passers, the playmakers, the table setter, is going to help everyone else sort into whatever their natural order is. I think it's going to be a much more natural progression on like the route tree now.
If that's true, then I even love it more, because like I said, that was my biggest skepticism. The other thing about Maxey, though, to jump on there, he's on the Kyrie Irving train now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Kyrie's brand was jet fueled when LeBron got to Cleveland, right? Like if you were a basketball fan, you knew who Kyrie Irving was back, when he was at Duke. You know who Tyrese Maxey is if you're a basketball fan. Casual fans don't know who Tyrese Maxey is outside of Philadelphia. You are going to know it. Like Kyrie got a shoe deal with Nike, everything after winning a championship with LeBron, and that is out there now for Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I think the other one to really answer your question, I think it's Jalen Tyson, because I think LeBron was coming in. He was going to take Jalen Tyson's spot. Sure. And I think Jalen Tyson's good. I think Jalen Tyson had a good year last year, and I think he got completely benched in the playoffs for reasons I'm still not entirely sure of. And I think he's going to be the fifth guy for Cleveland. And I'm excited for that. So you're laughing at me, but I really think I'm like, who's like,
I just think about Cavs fans listening to this and being like, we wanted LeBron, but that's a good point about Jalen Tyson.
Well, I didn't say it was good for Cavaliers fans.
No,
all right?
Right.
I said it was good for Jalen Tyson specifically.
I love the idea of Cavaliers fans just being like sad right now, and Jalen Tyson sitting on his couch just like fist pumping, just like, yes,
got it.
Still got my minutes, baby.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world for me, I think LeBron goes to Minnesota and he turns them into like a legitimate like top tier contender. So you could say the top of the West maybe, because Minnesota's already been a really hard out in the playoffs, right? Already, even if you were like, well, they didn't quite have enough to get to the finals. Like nobody was happy. Certainly asked Denver about being happy to play the Timberwolves in the playoffs, and they would have been a lot scarier with LaMelo and LeBron than they are with just LaMelo on the team now, right? To go with Edwards and Gobert and Jaden McDaniels and stuff. But I think James would have raised their ceiling significantly, even though he never really seemed to consider it. But he would have been such a perfect fit in Minnesota that he would have scared, I think, the top of the West. That team would have scared the top of the West. And now, like, he's in the East. He's somebody else's problem,
That's my last winner here, the TV networks and the league here. We have now had Giannis go from Milwaukee to Miami. So still in the Eastern Conference, but small market to a much bigger market. Not like New York or LA, but a bigger market. We've had Kawhi, I think, leaving the Western Conference and going to the Eastern Conference. I guess TBD on that. We've had the Jays split up in Boston, one of them going to Philadelphia, obviously. Now you got LeBron going west to east. That balances out the star power in the two conferences so much more. And now we have a legit, like you think about the previous generation being LeBron and Steph, we got one in each conference. We have players in the new generation in each of these conferences, right? You got Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Tyrese Halliburton. Like you have real star power from the younger generation in the Eastern Conference, and obviously you do in the West with Shea and Victor Wembanyama and those guys too. So I think the star power is a lot more balanced now. I think the national TV schedule is going to look a lot more interesting, and I think for us here on the East Coast, now I don't have to stay up until 10:30 to watch LeBron tip off.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that. Big fan.
Yeah. I mean, the East is going to be so deep this year with teams that are like, not just like trying to win, but actually like pretty good. Like could beat anybody in the West. Like the best teams I think are the Knicks, the Thunder, and the Spurs. Thank you. And then I'd still put the Nuggets right up there. Although who knows what their summer is going to look like, because their summer is very much unfinished. So I would say the West is still top heavier overall, but the East is deeper. Like teams, 6 or 7 through 12 are way better in the East than the West, in my opinion. So
I agree.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man.
RealGM Radio, part of the RealGM Radio network. Thanks so much for jumping on, Mike, for this emergency podcast. Thanks to all for listening live here on YouTube. If you missed any part of this will be up on YouTube and up in your podcast feeds per usual. And then Mo and Jared will be back with the Double Dribble on Monday, talking about all the fallout from this big LeBron James news, and they'll hit you with their takes, which you're not going to want to miss on LeBron to Philly. I wonder if they agree with us, but we'll have to wait until Monday to find out. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, guys.